Sljedeći panel, to jest ovaj panel najavljen s iznimnim zadovoljstvom, znači asocijacija LocationManagersGuild International i njezini predstavnici, a samim time i moji kolege, pošto sam ja location manager, reći će nam nešto o izazovima traženja lokacija u 21. stoljeću. Znači to su location manageri s višegodišnjim iskustvom rada na velikim i svjetskim poznatim projektima. Moderator će biti gospodin John Rakich, koji je našeg podrijetla, a ujedno i predsjednik LMGI-a. Pa prepuštam riječ gospodinu Rakiću. Mr. Rakich, hello.
Hello. So, as you said, I'm John Rakich. I'm a location manager based out of Toronto, Canada. I am also the current president of the Location Managers Guild International, which is a global organization of career location professionals with a goal to promote our place as creative collaborators within the entertainment industry. And we do that through a lot of programs such as speaking on panels like this one, our annual award show. And most recently, our biggest success has now been granted the eligibility to become voting members of the Television Academy, which just happened yesterday.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And like you said, the topic of today's panel is location scouting in the 21st century. Kind of a look at some of the new innovations in tech that have recently been adopted, like drones, 3D cameras, virtual scouting, which has all kind of really exploded in the last few years. And I think, before we get started, we'll give a chance to introduce the rest of the panel we have with us today.
Sure. Would you like to introduce the guys, or should I?
Feel free to.
Okay, so we have with us Zachary Quemore, if I pronounced it right, or Zach Quemore, and Mr. Jeff Hunter. So, feel free to say a couple of words, guys. Introduction, Zach.
Good morning, Zachary Quemore, like he said. So I've been scouting for mostly television and feature films for probably the last 15 years. And, that the advances in technology has certainly helped us with our job. We've been able to go further and higher than we've ever been before, and really excited for what's to come.
Good morning. My name is Hunter. I'm location manager for the last 15 years. I currently work on a show called All American, and been really always new tech and gadgets. I've always embraced them. I think with COVID, it's really opened the door. My last 3 shows since we've been back up and running, I've been able to get everyone to embrace a lot of virtual scouting. The drone footage popular that I've made is the use of Matterport. We've been able to do all our tech scouts virtually.
Okay. I mean, things have changed since, I've been doing this for 20 years. I remember when scouting was a 35 millimeter camera and you'd have to get negatives printed and put photos together. And it all changed when digital came out and no longer had to spend hours taping pictures together and carrying 35 pounds of photos. And it's really even changed from, digital cameras to DSLRs to, let's be honest, most people in a pinch are scouting with a phone. I mean, this handheld device has the shooting capacity of, almost a pro level camera. Not that it replaces, a large full frame camera. There's still a huge need for that. But in a quick pinch, almost all of us when we're out and about, we'll just grab our phones because it's a high res photo, digitally uploaded. You can share it instantly, which really just, it moves you from having to come back to an office to basically being able to work remotely. I don't think in the last year I've actually pulled out a real camera.
I agree.
Yeah. Start with drones. I know in the last couple of years, the prosumer models are pretty much an invaluable tool for photography and scouting, but like digital mapping, on my last 2 shows, we're constantly using our own drones for our work. And I know, Zach, how's drones changed things for you?
So it's actually been really interesting because I started off, trying to get those beautiful pictures. We scouted a little bit for The Revenant. where we were looking for rivers and areas that were kind of in the remote, and we needed beautiful pictures. And it's now become more of a logistical tool. So we found that more and more departments were using the data that we had captured from the beginning. We started doing drone mapping, which is basically when you take a series of photos in a grid-like pattern in order to stitch them together and then make one large map. And we found that a lot of the departments were using it for different reasons, and it was actually really interesting. Like the ADs were using it for logistics, transpo, we were using it to find base camps, or if we needed to build our own base camps, we were using it to map out how much dirt we needed to move and where that dirt ended up going. And then, it trickled down to the electric department. They were able to use the drone mapping to measure out how much cable they would need to order, where the trenches needed to be dug for that cable. And it just kept going and going. Art department used it. We started doing 3D mapping, where we actually were making models of the locations in order to figure out where set pieces were going to go and the different elevations that the set pieces needed to be put on. So it ended up, one tool or one bit of information was being able to be used throughout the entire process, even to visual effects, where they were using some of the models to blow things up and destroy things and rebuild it in post-production. So, one piece of data, brought through the entire production, thus saving, production money, which is ultimately either time and money is what we're looking to save. So,
no, exactly. I mean, when I first got into drones to get some high angle shots, instead of having to stand up on a ladder or climb up, you could no longer have to go high. I could get up, 100 feet and do photos. And then, you start realizing I can tell a better story with it now. I can actually record video to show. My last show, the director really wanted that we use the drones to, visually tell a story with the location for him, to the point that when we'd be on scouts with him, he would constantly look over to me, ask me to pull it out and almost shoot previs. Basically shots before he ever had an idea. But what you were talking about, Zach, for those that don't know, there's some software out there. One of them is Drone Deploy that allow me to share with everyone. I don't know if you can see what's on the screen. It basically takes a 3D, you basically plot out a more real-time Google map. So the coordinates, and let's be honest, we've all used Google Earth, but sometimes it's horribly out of date, and production needs to have it in current time. So with a software like this, you can actually progressively shoot photos from different times. And because of the way the drone flies, it allows you to do what Zach talked about. It renders a 3D model based on the photographs. Which you then can, other departments can use. So basically, there you have a completely rendered 3D model of that location, which you can zoom into, and it's become quite a game changer for not just scouting, but for later on sharing information with other departments. And it doesn't take very long.
Just to add to that, so with the drone deploy, one of the specific things that we ended up doing was we were shooting in a quarry, which if you've ever shot in a quarry, the roads change every day. They're constantly moving earth around, and Google Earth was, even a couple months old, and it was rendered useless to us. We were trying to do schematics. We were trying. Art department was trying to build sets in there, and we didn't have an accurate overhead of it. So we were able to do a 3D map of it and an orthomosaic map of it, and we were able to plot out where our set pieces were going to go in real time. And then we even went in and built our own roads, and we were able to then map those as well, so that they were up to date in order for us to do all of our logistics, such as where we're going to build the tents, how much earth we needed to move around. So it was a really invaluable tool for both art department, production, transportation, even down to catering, where they're going to put their ice machines. And it, like John was saying, it didn't take a lot of time in order to do this, and it's just invaluable information that you can get within a reasonable time at a reasonable price. So.
John, I think you're on mute.
Apologies. I was going to say, my last show, we did a lot of quarries and outdoors and waterfalls, and those are kind of hard to photograph. A rock quarry just looks like a bunch of rocks on a wall. It's hard to get the depth and the scope, but with a drone, you're able to go up high, swoop down, show them the elevation and the heights. We did that with a lot of waterfalls. We could actually skim along the water's edge, go over the top, spin back. It makes the photography, it gives you more options as opposed to wherever I can stand with the camera. And the quality these days, 4K there's 4K on most drones, and my VisFX department was using it for FreeVis, and the new models that are coming out soon will shooting in ProRes. I mean, that's motion picture quality that you can carry in your bag, and it comes in really handy for VFX plate shots, which are becoming all the rage now. And it's a tool that's just really changed things for those that want to embrace it. Am I saying everyone needs to go run out and spend thousands of dollars to get one? No, not if it's not something that you need, but it's funny. It's one of those things I got, and I find more uses for it than not, but not everyone needs to get it. But now,
and a little disclaimer: in the United States, if you're using it for profit, you will need a license for it.
It's the same in other countries too. Yeah, there's some licensing requirements and training, but you can get little basic ones to play with and try stuff out, and you'll find uses for it. They come in handy. But going back to what Jeff talked about before about coming out of COVID, out of the pandemic, there was a real big concern about how we'd be able to carry on how we worked with social distancing and restrictions. So the big thing was, how do we scout and especially survey? And that's how we saw the rise, or not even the rise, of the incorporation of 3D photography and other options for remote scouting. And, Jeff and Zach have more experience with Matterport, which is one of the platforms. And, feel free to go on, Jeff. Tell us about Matterport.
So coming back from COVID, first show I did was season 3 of You. And Warner Brothers was extremely concerned about in-person tech scouts. And I'd had some experience with Matterport in the past, to the point where I went ahead and bought the camera. The services around town they're very pricey, 10 cents per square foot. If I've got a large, 6,200 square foot house and I need to show that's going to add up over time. So playing around with Matterport, I found it a lot simpler than I was expecting. Once you got a hang of it, there's a few tips and tricks. You start running into things that are very repetitive. You need to start putting up QR codes so that it can break up the space. But I'll share. Give me 1 second.
So for those that don't know, Matterport basically is a 3D camera system that you can walk in, and really it's real estate that was the one that was adopting it more. And we, like all things, you take the good that's out there and kind of embrace it into our industry. There's other systems out there, but Matterport really excels in basically giving you an actual 3D model that production can walk through, saving, at the time with COVID, people actually going, or it really helps when not everyone's in the same geographic area. I've got your French cafe ready to go if you want, Jeff.
Yeah, because I'm having this is a little different than Zoom, and I'm having a hard time figuring out how to share the screen I'm trying to show.
There we go. So this is what the wireframe looks like, but you can basically walk right in. And literally move within the 3D environment and have full 360-degree visual.
The camera's utilizing 9 different cameras, 3 of which are infrared. The others take photos from a high angle, a center angle, and a low angle. The Matterport software stitches this all together. So this is not even something that once you've done this walkthrough, put this all together, it uploads to the Matterport server and takes that information and pieces it all together. And then you're able to literally walk your production team through the entire location without ever setting foot on there. I will say with Grip and Electric, that is not always the best option for them, but then I will take G&E on a separate scout, just myself, them, and the DP. Then we don't have this large group of 30, 40 people all standing around each other like we typically do. And this worked out for us, and we embraced this. And for the whole season 3 of You, this is how we did our tech scouts. For the remake of House Party, for those of you that remember the 90s, this is exactly how we did our tech scouts. And we've also embraced this on the first season of All American Homecoming. All our tech scouts are via Matterport scans, and then we'll take Grip Electric and our DP out to figure out lighting placements in person. We have, like Zach had mentioned, haven't embraced when this is not an option. I will throw a drone in the air. I will do a scan of the area, map it all out with drone deploy, and we've done that in the past also. But what I'm getting at is everyone has very much embraced the new technology, not immediately. We're so used to doing things a certain way. I've always said that as location managers, as long as the job's getting done properly, we're very much creatures of habit. But I love technology. I mean, I'm the first one to latch onto something. I'd been trying to put Matterport in play 2 years prior to the pandemic because I thought it was a great tool when I ran across it on a location services website where it was this new thing that they had done, and it came out of the real estate industry.
Now, how long would something like that take?
It really depends on the location. So I think the craziest one I've done was on House Party. We were in a 17,000 square foot mansion that took me 4 hours to scan that house between the interior and the exterior. And then the one thing to note with Matterport is it is very good on interiors. You need either early morning or late afternoon because direct sunlight on an exterior does not come out well. There is a way to do it, but it is not that standard walkthrough where you can jump from point A to point B to point C. You actually have to do a scan where you just see 360 and then you can jump over and see another area. If you get a cloudy day, it works very well. They make another camera that works well in bright sunlight, but that camera is a little over $18,000 that I wasn't willing to spend.
That's the thing. The technology isn't cheap yet. And it's the reason why is because it still hasn't figured out how to you'll be tracking shadows in all your walking shots. It's the same thing with drone photography too. Your optimal time is early morning, early evening, direct sun. You get a lot of drone shadow in anything you record. I've been using a Ricoh Theta, which is a small handheld 360-degree camera for a few years. And that's come in handy when we don't have time to photograph an entire room. You just walk into a room, take a shot, and it does a great 360 of a room. And it comes in handy at wrap when your set decorators haven't put things back where they're supposed to, and you can go back to a reference photo and say, that photo was supposed to be here. It's the funniest thing, but that's 90% of the use I have is for after the fact to sit there and go, something's wrong. What was it? And traditionally, photographed the room, but you might have missed a corner, and you don't think of capturing the whole thing. And literally, the Ricoh, it's the size of a lighter, and you just hit a button and it captures it. And trust me, Tomislav, you're laughing, but the amount of times you go back to set decorators and go, that couch is not in the right spot. Well, yes, it is. No, it's not.
I am not laughing.
I'll say
it's worth the money just for that.
It's the same. It's always the same with set decks. So this advice is very handy. That's why I wasn't laughing.
And they can't. And the thing is, they can't even. People can't even tell you're doing it because you hold it in your hand, hold it above your head. It takes a second. Well, it was a director of photography that got me into it because he was doing that for lighting setups. He would scan rooms when we scouted to figure out how to light it. But I looked at it and went, wait, we've documented the room in one shot. Yeah, it's about the size of that. That's the Insta360 you have there?
That's the Insta360.
And I also have a GoPro 360.
I just started using this for that exact point. We did a show, and a homeowner tried to claim roughly about $80,000 of damage to a swimming pool that we never filmed. And luckily for me, I had done a scan of the backyard and was able to identify the crack in the scan that the homeowner said we caused. Now, obviously, I left it to Warner Brothers to fight that fight, but I said, here is proof, because it was time stamped and dated. And I said, there's no way we caused this damage.
And that's a great thing about all the tech nowadays. It's all geocached and time stamped. So especially when you take a photo on your phone, where was this? Well, I can pull up the GPS coordinate. Now, so Zach, you've been using this stuff too, but in some different aspects. Yeah.
Definitely. Damage was actually when I first started using it as well, because you always take photos of what is already damaged, not what isn't damaged, because your eye goes towards the scratches, not what you caused. So it definitely started off with that, and then I was using it for tech scouts, being able to quickly take pictures of the room, and then I could put notes on it. And then lately, with the advent of I guess it's virtual production and the 360 LED walls, we actually started scouting with 360 cameras and making 360 HDRIs, which is high dynamic range images. And visual effects has been using 360 HDRIs for a while. But now with the advent of the 360 cameras getting more high definition and everything like that, and with virtual production, we actually started scouting and doing our own 360 HDRIs of locations that were far remote and areas that you wouldn't really want to bring an entire crew to. But with the advent of the 360, the volumes and the virtual walls, you can take those HDRIs and put those in the volume, and you can bring a crew of 160 people to, very remote locations that you would never be able to bring productions to, and have this stage aspect of control, being able to change the sun position and the lighting and everything like that. And that's kind of been a huge game changer in the way that I scout, as well as, obviously with production, being able to go even further than they normally would, where, we were in Vietnam and we actually had to build roads to some of our remote locations. Now we're able to bring the locations to the studios, which has been amazing.
Yeah, that's the next big thing that you brought up is shows like The Mandalorian, you're seeing more awareness and use of volume stages or virtual production. So it's the cutting edge of high-res 3D walls with the game engine running and track cameras. There's a few shows in my town that have started doing that for sets, and it still requires photography. Like, you still need a location to put up on those walls. So it's not the fear that we all hear that we're going to be out of a job. No, we still have to go out there. But what's happening is we're now going into, like Zach mentioned, we're going to be able to go into places and get the location without having to bring a 50-person crew to get plate shots. the scout himself can now do it. I've done, I'm doing more and more plate shot and high res scouting for that reason. You can send me in a plane to some canyon or cliff face, and then we can just bring that back to the studio and put it on a volume wall, LED wall, or green screen, as opposed to before, which is scout came back and you had to now figure out how to get 40 people out there and how to house them and crew them and get gear up there. And it opens up the possibility of what production can do, and still allows, location scouts and professionals to do their creativity.
Truly.
The future sounds promising.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when green screen first came out, we were all told we'd be out of a job.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
20 years ago, green screen, which don't have to go. We'll shoot everything in studio. Well, that's not always the case. You still need to go outside. And the volume wall is the same thing. It allows the shooting crew to do things in a safer environment, but it still requires locations to go out there and find it.
Yep. The other aspect that was kind of interesting that we found is that we went out and we scouted for different areas, and then we brought in visual effects to do texturing. So we went out to, areas like lava tubes and everything like that. And instead of, just capturing what you saw, they came out and used photogrammetry in order to get the texture of the lava tubes and the texture of some of the rock faces in there. And then they were able to take it into the game engines and create entire worlds at massive scales using these textures from real life locations, and then create fantasy from the reality that we took them to.
Yeah. And that's becoming more and more commonplace. Like I said, there's more and more virtual production stages being built. And it's going to be something that we're all going to have to embrace. Much like we went from film to digital, we adapt.
Yeah.
The future is bright and controllable.
Yes.
And droneable.
Yeah.
I actually did just to cut in a little bit. We did I know you have like this drone deployment, this kind of software stuff that you're using. It's way too much of an overkill for the productions that are in Croatia at the moment, or future productions. But we actually had a really serious problem with the tech scout this February because of Brexit, because of lockdown. We had a UK crew that was unavailable to come at that specific moment. That was supposed to be quarantined, so there was no talk of any tech recce's, stuff like that. So we basically just got a 2-man crew with a 360 camera and did it a little less sophisticated than with drone deploy and this Matter. Sorry, what's the other software?
Matterport.
Matterport. Yeah.
Matterport's an actual camera, not just a software.
Camera. Okay.
It's an impressive little tool.
We did it just with Insta360's Big Brother, and we had a 2-guy crew just walking around the locations. We were sending them back and forth to London, and there was the most exhausting tech recce I've ever been on. And on the 5th day, we had a Zoom recce, which was my first.
Oh.
Yeah, it was like just like a big, huge hall with like 50 people sitting in Zagreb and 50 people sitting in London, and everybody was like looking for the for this 360 footage and trying to find. It's like, I really don't want to go through that again, and I don't. I hope future doesn't look like that.
Yeah.
But this software stuff and this drone deploy stuff sounds really interesting, actually. So, what kind of projects you working on with this new technology at the moment?
Well, I just finished the 3rd season of C for Apple TV Plus, and we were using it a lot just because of the scope and scale of the stuff we were doing. We were still traditionally going out, like the director, they all wanted to go in person and stand there, but where it came in handy is it also eliminated 19 different visits later on. You have it once recorded, everyone can go back and do what they need to. Because with drone deploy, because it knows the height and the scale, you can actually use it to measure. Pretty close. It's not 100% accurate, but it cuts down on the repeat visits you constantly keep getting from the art department to come measure for the 5th time.
Yeah. Yeah, nobody gets it. We get it. That's fine.
Yes, definitely a location fatigue. Although I actually wanted to touch on the tech scout, and I think Jeff would agree with me. As far as I actually enjoy virtual tech scouts, because I think that, virtual tech scouts cuts down. You can see a lot more locations on a virtual tech scout than you can see actually going on a tech scout. The other thing is I found that a lot more answers and a lot more questions were brought up and answered during the virtual tech scout. We've all been on tech scouts, and you go and you get none of your answers or none of your questions answered. It's everyone stands around, and a lot of people are seeing it for the very first time, so they don't even know what to ask you on the tech scout. Whereas when we did virtual tech scouts, we were able to go through a lot more locations. People were seeing these for the first time, so they were like, okay, great, get a better, kind of well-rounded view of the locations. And then when we actually went out to the locations, the questions were a lot better, a lot more poignant, and we were able to actually get a lot more done when we went there because everyone had the overview. And it was only like a half day for a tech scout, a virtual tech scout, and you didn't have that lost time of going from place to place to place. The other great thing was there was no tech scout lunch. Production was able to bring it in, which is, a godsend in our business. So I think Jeff would definitely be able to talk more on that and the godsend of a virtual.
The virtual when I first brought it, I mean, everyone kind of was like, what is this going to be like? The camera shoots in such high res, and if you have optimal light, I pick certain points of times a day to do these. So it makes it a little more on me because I don't have a team that's comfortable with the system yet, nor am I wanting to give this $5,000 piece of equipment to just anyone. But the one thing I found was I have it on my server. My director can go and look at the site anytime he or she would like. The production designer has access to it. They don't, hey, can I go out to that? They stopped asking those questions a lot. They would just go on the server and look, hey, mostly it's like, hey, what's the password again? It's the same one as the photos. But the other thing I was able to do with Matterport is I can create a map of a room or a house. I can do multiple levels, and I want to share this with you. I just can't seem to share screen. It's just not working for me. But I can create a blueprint of a particular location, and it is in with 1%, I believe. The next camera up is so close. It's really like crazy how precise it can be. But again, that camera is about $18,000. But we found that these dimensions that it was giving were pretty precise, because then they go, well, we want to make sure, can we get out? Can we measure it? And then they'd measure it, and then they'd go off my map. They're like, hey, this is pretty spot on. So I'm able to give them a blueprint that they don't even have to now draw. Like, they have all the specs. Obviously, when construction has to go out and make sure a plug fits, they need in person. But it's just saved everyone a lot of time. The scouts, I'm able to take a company through what would have normally taken us 3 days to drive and stop and see. I can do that in 1 day. I can do that in a few hours, because you're able to just walk through each one. We sit, we talk, we have discussions. Everyone's always going to, at some point or another, want to go out to the home, to the site, to wherever this is, and see it in person, because it's such a new technology that they don't really have any knowledge about. So we need to see it in person. But I'm starting to see with people that I've worked with the last couple of shows, stop asking those questions. Hey, can I get a blueprint? Yeah, not a problem. It, like anything, takes time for people to really embrace, but I am finding that from the first show that I came back after, once we were back up and running, to say the show I'm on now, there are some people that were on you that I'm working with on Homecoming. Just, hey, can we get that Matterport scan? I don't need to go out there if you have one. And absolutely, it makes my job easier. I don't have to be at 10 places at once. All those scans are on my server. They can see them at any time. And it's helped everyone. It's just getting everyone to embrace the technology. That's been my biggest challenge with it.
Also, another point about Matterport, Jeff has the high-end camera, which gives you the best measurements and everything like that. But there are lower-end cameras, such as our 360 cameras, that can work with Matterport. You can actually do it with your phone as well.
Your iPhone.
Yeah, with your iPhone, and still get a lot of the same results and a lot of the same measurements. So I think that the bar of entry is getting lower and lower. And as with our phones now, we have LiDAR in them, so you can actually get a lot of those accurate measurements. You can get a lot of floor plans just by using your phone. And I think that this lowering of the bar is really going to help as far as adopting this new technology. And I think that, location managers and location scouts are in the best position to be the ones pushing this technology forward, because we are, once, as everyone knows, the first one's in and the last one's out. And a lot of times we are both having to be left brain and right brain. We are the connection between, the creatives and the logistics. And, a lot of us have to put on both of those hats. And I think that that's what makes us so unique in the industry and really allows us to be pushing this technology forward and being in the best position to do it, because we can get it to production first. And that way they can take this data that we're gathering from the very beginning and use it throughout the entire process, which we've talked about from the beginning to the end, with previs, with director scouts, art scouts, tech scouts. Now we're doing visual effects plate shots, which normally don't come until the very end. We're talking about 3D models that visual effects is using to destroy, well past when they're using our data, and we've been on 2 other shows already, and they're still using the data that we collected on, it might not be our first day of scouting, but, what I found is that after the director has seen a bunch of photos, said, I want these 3 locations, we go out and scan those 3 locations. That's very early in on the process. And then we can use that data throughout the entire filmmaking process. And productions are finding even more and more creative ways to use it and save money, which is, and time, which is the ultimate goal.
I will say, if anyone's interested in Matterport, the camera I use is fairly pricey, but I've been playing around with the Insta360 because it is also Matterport capable, compatible. You have different price points on the plans that you can get. It's basically how many active sites you want running. That's where the price point starts to climb. If you're trying to host hundreds of them, which is unnecessary. I use their lowest plan. I only activate the ones that are currently being used on the show that I'm working on. But this camera, I was amazed how well it does. The actual Matterport camera, game changer. It's definitely different than this. But this camera here will work just as well as an entry level to be able to do a 3D scan of an interior. It will do exterior also. It's just a little, like I said earlier, limited by direct sunlight. The scans start having issues with stitching things together. It doesn't work well in direct sunlight. But the Insta360, I keep thinking I'm going the other way with the camera. It's a great tool. It really is.
So you can load software from other cameras and stitch it up basically in Matterport, or
yeah. There's
same with the Ricoh
cameras that will work. Like it's iPhone compatible, so you can do a scan with an iPhone. They've now released the version for Android, so now it's Android compatible. And then there's the Insta360. There's a couple of other cameras, and then there's some very high-end cameras. One being mainly for construction sites and very, very detailed, down to like 0.001%. Like it's almost an exact measurement. But those are out of my price range. For what we do, I'm not spending $18,000 on.
The only reason I'm asking is because I've got like 200 gigs of 3D 360 data that was sort of half of it was unstitchable at that moment, and they were using like so many different programs. It just got messed up in the process. So I will give this a go, and I will tell you how it went, John.
And the Matterport capture app is very user friendly. So it's very
remember, it was designed for the real estate industry, so it's realtors that were using it.
Exactly.
So it wasn't. It's something that we've adopted, but it was designed for that user, for basically a real estate agent to do a walkthrough of a house. Because remember, during COVID, you couldn't take people to go into a house to look around, so it has to be someone who can basically walk. It's not the most complicated thing to run. It's just expensive.
No, not at all.
And then
I'd say the biggest thing is I had to do a parking structure, and every floor looked the same, and it starts to have issues. It starts to think that it saw this already. So what you can do is Matterport has these QR codes that you can print out, and then you can start slapping these on walls so that it's able to realize, oh, this is a completely new area. And it keeps those, when it goes to stitch everything together, it makes it a nice, clean stitching process.
And also just another thing, just because Matterport is by far the best in the industry, but there are other ones such as 360 Vista and some other ones that you can also take a look at if the price point of Matterport is too much. The other thing is that some shows have proprietary issues. I know if you work with some of the Disney shows, they want to make sure that they own everything. So there are some other ones such as 360 Vista that you can also get, which are kind of like your walkthrough areas. They don't have the dollhouse view that Matterport has, but there are some alternatives in case you run into those issues, just as a quick plug.
Awesome. Well, I think we're almost out of time.
I could talk for hours about this stuff.
We still have enough time for Zach to spill us some insight on the Obi-Wan project, because he's wearing that. So obviously, he's going to tell us a little bit.
Keep forgetting about that. I mean,
okay, you signed the NDA.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, if he starts talking, all of a sudden it'll Disney will start pixelating his screen.
Exactly. Take this down immediately. So, but go watch it. It's going to be great. So, I can say that Disney will let me say that.
Yeah. But yeah, as you noticed, we've embraced the tech. Just makes the job a little easier, a little better. It offers some new options for keeping us all employed. So
sure.
Not to promote one brand being better than others, but it's out. They're basically tools. They're as good as the user who's using them. So you don't have to have the most expensive, fanciest thing. You just, it's really down to the user.
Right. And the different ways that we use it.
Yeah.
You know, like you said, it started off in real estate, and now we're using it for location scouting, which is, you know, a completely different use case, but equally as good.
I will say the one thing with the Matterport camera that I'd like to see change for our industry is it not being, it's a little wide. I won't go as far as to say fish-eyed, but fish-eyed. Like it does give a little wider perspective than when you're there in person. But I just make everyone aware of that. Like, this is a tool for us to use to do a walkthrough. Like, this is not cinematic quality. You're not seeing, it's just a tad wide. I've actually reached out to them directly to see if there's any plans in the future to be a little more based on our, something for our industry. Is there a way to adjust that? And I'm waiting to hear back. But just keep that in mind, that it is a little wider of a view than you would see in person. I would say that because I've had mentions of that from DPs. I noticed it instantly, and it's a tool for a tech scout. I'm not trying to show you exactly what you're going to be doing when you get there.
It very much reminds me of when digital first became all the rage and everyone was doing panoramics, and it'd be like these distorted, fish-eyed photos.
Yeah.
Because you wanted to try to get the whole place in one shot and didn't realize okay, it's going to look bad. That's now. I mean, I can't shoot a pan anymore. I mean, the phone shoots 16:9. If I step far enough back, I can get it in one usually. And still zoom in. But the tech comes out and we adopt it and find out what's wrong and move on to something better, or they find out that there's a market for it and they improve it.
Well, and that's the thing I think Matterport has realized is there's more of a market than they had initially designed it for. It's, I'm not the only one using it. I mean, John, we know
several shows that people are using. Yeah, they're using Matterport, or their production has purchased Insta360 or other forms that they're making use. I think one company shipped up one of those 360 ball cameras. I think they found in some discount warehouse somewhere, and made them use. It was a crazy idea. Some company made it with a ball with cameras all around it, as opposed to just two, and you have to walk around with it on a stick. The idea was you could actually throw it up in the air, and when it hit the apogee, it would take the photograph. But now you've got guys throwing a $300 glass ball in the air
and trying to catch it.
Yeah, trying to catch it. None of us are athletes. Let's be honest. But I mean, I think we've covered most of the topics we're hoping for.
Yeah, we're sort of drawing to an end. We have 2 more topics left on the conference. From my behalf, I really want to thank you for letting us know your insight and experience with new technologies. I think it's going to come in very handy, and it's going to come in handy for me for sure. And I will let you know about the results. And if you've just like anything else to say, we're gonna be signing off pretty soon. Zach, go get some coffee.
Right, gonna need it.
For those that aren't aware, Zach is much. He's in Hawaii right now, so this is first thing in the morning for him.
Yeah, I think one interesting thing, looping in Croatia and national areas, this kind of technology really helps. Hollywood come to these different countries. I just did a fam tour, me and John just did a fam tour in Spain. And, the wheels started turning in my head, being like, I wish I had more time here. So that way I could bring these locations, back to Los Angeles, back to New York, back to Toronto, these other countries, and really be able to show the producers here, all these other countries without having to bring them over to, Spain, Croatia, Portugal and everything like that. Show the producers kind of a glimpse of some of these sites that we can really expand to for Hollywood, so we can get out of the valley and start shooting in different areas and not the same streets. So I think that these tools will certainly bring the world of movie making closer and allow us to go to far off lands and bring film sets there.
You're welcome in Croatia, for sure. You're welcome in Croatia.
Thanks.
Need to come back.
Yep. Sounds like a fam tour.
Yeah. I'll be the perfect host and the guide.
Great.
Okay, that's it, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
It's been
you.
a pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.